Christie's had a few auctions already this year. You were at the post-war and contemporary art auction in London on March the 6th. And I read that positive was that you've sold 93% of the 41 lots. But looking at the numbers, both you and Sotheby's made less in the evening sales compared to last year. What are the reasons for this downturn?
Well, beginning of this year, people have been a bit hesitant to consign to the auctions. They were all waiting for the signal that the February-March auctions would give to the market. So they weren't really scared of the political turmoils like Brexit or anything, but they were a bit less enthusiastic to consign in this particular season. So all of us, we had a tough time in getting major works together. And the comforting news was, indeed, we sold very well, like percentages above 90%, not only in post-war contemporary, also the Impressionists did very well. Also in Paris, we sold a book collection, high percentage rate. And you could feel in the market a sign of relief after the figures came out, that gave comfort, that gave confidence to the market.
So if you say it sold well, it sold within what you had estimated?
Yes, there were some interesting surprises in the sales. Generally, it was a lot sold within the estimates or at the lower end of the estimates, being quite honest about it.
So not a record?
It was not like a high fly season. It was a like, let's get down to the earth, let's be realistic season.
You mentioned the uncertainty, I mean, especially in the UK, I guess, about Brexit. So there's a general preference not to sell into the uncertainty, I guess. People like also to buy in places where currency is cheap. Is Christie's taking any actions, to get bidders and buyers to buy in these times?
Well, you had the opportunity to lock currency, but generally the art market has the advantage of being pretty resistant against any political or economical turmoils. Like sometimes the currency is high, if the dollar is high, it's expensive for the buyers, it's good for the sellers. If the pound is low, it's good for the buyers from the US or European currencies. In the end, it equals out. And the discussions you're having with the buyers, and coming back from London, I can tell that, were more about like the quality of the artwork, about the artist, about the recent development, what is he doing now, than about currency and exchange rates.
There are different types of collectors, some that are really art lovers and some that see that more as an investment.
This rumor about the investment-only collectors, if you really look into investment, art is the least ideal place to look at it as from an investment point. High transition rates, high insecurity, high emotional content. I think everybody who also has money on his mind also has a passion for art who buys art. Otherwise, they would go into the stock market.
Sales in the UK were less strong as the year before, but if we look at the global picture, according to the Art Basel UBS report, public auction increased. So with the US showing a bigger growth, while China declined a bit, making UK the second biggest market now. What is driving US clients now?
There is a strong movement of globalization among collectors. Like by now we deal with collectors in 196 countries. Not only the classic UK, Central Europe, American, Asia. Asia counts for nearly a third of the business in the auction market. There are years when it's a bit less, there are years when it's a bit stronger, but they play a major role in it. Particularly also a new generation of collectors has come up. They collect passionately, mostly young art of their generation, where you have direct access to and you can relate to easily. There are also auction fields where you see a decline in the desire. Like when I started, the decorative arts were a major contributor to the auctions. By now, that has diminished to a tiny percentage of the art market. Old Masters is declining, but then again, Impressionist Modern is rising, post-war contemporary is rising, the whole luxury world is rising. So in general, there is a continuous growth in the art market.
I guess this is based on trends. Now it's probably less trendy to have old masters.
Yeah, it has not as much to do with your personal situation of living. Hardly any young person lives in a kind of environment where old master paintings with the opulent frames actually look great too. So we're missing a bit the new collector generation for these type of paintings, but also the amount of masterpieces in that field coming up for auction, being not yet in museum, not yet in a private museum, is declining. Like when we see a masterpiece coming up, like the Rubens a few years ago, a record price will arise. But we're struggling on both sides, finding masterpieces and developing a new generation for collectors and lovers of that art field.
A few markets are rising, some declining. The total sales value of auction houses in Asia has been on a rise since 2015, but suddenly it declined by 13% last year. So also the outlook for the Chinese economy is less optimistic. So I was thinking, are you trying to compensate this loss or declining by looking into other countries then?
The globalization takes on. Like we look into all worldwide countries, also in Africa and in Australia. But we've been very early on with our strong activities in Asia, and that was a strategic decision very early on. So we are not demoralized by short-term less interest from these countries. We continue our activities there, and we're very confident that this will become and continue to be a major influence on the art market.
The profile of collectors, according to the report, the US, usually they're 50 years and older, while buyers in Asia are much younger. Almost half of them are millennials. So I guess their buying behavior and taste is different. How do you adapt to these changing preferences?
Generally, you can see that the collector's base gets more and more diverse. Like this classic collector starting or inheriting a family collection and building on it, being for 50 years on the market with a very straight profile on what they want, is now added with other collector types, like people who earn their own fortune, particularly in Asia, and who make their way through the luxury goods maybe first, the watches, the cars, and then turn into art. At the same time, getting very quickly educated and intelligent about art movements. So no longer the glossy things, but very intellectually, and then very confidently spending a lot of money on what they believe is important art. They often open their own private museums. They want to educate people with the art they bought. So that's a different type of artist. You also see collectors. You also see collectors who are not permanently in the market anymore, who get into the market. They want to put beautiful paintings in their house. Once the house is done, they maybe get out of the market. They come back in the wine area, or they come back on watches, or they get into the older art. So it's a much more diverse profile of collectors that we see these days than maybe 20 years ago.
There's a growth also when it comes to online sales, online auctions. You also do that?
Absolutely. We do a lot of online auctions. I think at least last year, 85 online sales. They are the biggest sector for growing new clients into, or drawing new clients into the traditional auction field. It's again a new generation. They don't want to interact too much with us, even with us specialists. They just sit in a cafe, they scroll on their iPad through the auctions, they get their condition reports online, they get their bids online, and they're done very spontaneous. You can also see the online bidding is growing more and more. It's pretty regular these days that you see online bidding beyond the $500,000 happening all over the auctions.
This is crazy. So I would just buy something online for such a big amount of money that I haven't really seen myself.
Exactly. There is that again comes to or brings you to what an auction house can do for their buyers. Like when you buy something at Christie's, you can be sure that a specialist has seen the work in the flesh, that there is a condition report that reflects the real condition, that is maybe added even with a condition report from somebody externally. So when you buy something at Christie's, even online, you can trust that the due diligence has been made by the auction house. That's maybe a difference to online auction houses that we've seen popping up in recent years, but also seen going down fairly quickly afterwards, because if you don't put the expertise behind it, online is a risky thing, as you say. So you need to trust the house to provide the expertise when you want to be confident in doing online business.
I would like to quickly talk about, the hammer price versus the final price. Final price being adding up the premiums, so the fees that the bidder has to pay extra after the hammer price. Because in February, 3 of the top auction houses in the world, so Christie's, Phillips, and Sotheby's, you all increased the buyer's premium by 1% for items fetching a hammer price for $4 million and up. And also below the $4 million, bidders pay 20 to 25% of premium. I was wondering, are bidders willing to pay that extra now, or do you need to lower the hammer price?
Well, the buyer's premium is a very transparent thing, which is a good thing about the auction world compared to
galleries
or any other art business. You know what you get. You have an estimate, you have a hammer price that is witnessed in an open public auction. You have a fully documented buyer's premium, so you know exactly what the house earns. As you said, there is a huge network of experts necessary to put these auctions of quality together and to prove and to do all the research that is necessary, and that falls into a buyer's premium. And clients understand that this is needed, and that you rather spend a bit more on the buyer's premium for getting a great service.
You also have a competition here. There are many auction houses, Swiss auction houses such as Kohler, Galerie Kornfeld. How do you differentiate? What is your best seller?
Well, the auction house here in Switzerland are amazing. Like when you mention Kornfeld, with a long-standing history, like generations of clients got their advice from about Kornfeld, which is an amazing thing. We bring a bit more internationality to the field, like with auctions taking place all over the world, with experts on 5 continents, with offerings of different types of art, from books to jewelry to handbags to old masters to 19th century, but also Asian art, Asian works of art. That is a global offering that we bring to Switzerland at the doorstep.
I saw you have a Swiss art auction in September, like Kornfeld, others, they will have Swiss old masters, Swiss art, contemporary art right now. So isn't that a bit late for you?
It's good to be to spreading it a bit around the year. It would be a strong competition if all the houses bringing up Swiss art to the market at the same time. It's a lot to digest for a market. So we spread it throughout the year, so there is always something exciting to get in the Swiss art field. And we are very proud to offer Swiss art here in Zurich since many, many years now.
What is your outlook on the future of the art market?
I think the art market will continue to grow. Globally, I think we will experience much more participation in a global field over the next years. I also see that we will look into different fields of art that have been neglected in the art historical discourse in the last years. I still see the field of women artists growing a lot. When you look at the museum shows that are currently happening, they look a lot back into art history, which positions they might been overlooked. because of gender, or like if you witness the recent rise of African American or African artists on the field, in the market, in the awareness of art historians, I think there is a lot of potential for moving on in different fields. So I have a very positive outlook. I think despite this saying it's a speculative market, I still see it as a passionate market, and this passion for art is growing all over the field.
Are you traveling to the next auction?
Absolutely, yes. So the next one is the Milan art sale in April, which is going to be a fantastic, amazing art de povera works in this auction. Then we have the Amsterdam sale, Paris is coming up. So it's going to be an exciting year.
And you're positive about all of this?
I'm very positive about it, particularly now that March and February have proven in a not so easy time to be a success in the art market. I think it will continue.
Great, thank you so much.